And looking at the group positions, Roger Freeth in the Toyota Oldsmobile, 1.317. Glenn Jones in the Commodore, 1.409. Ian Algie in the Alfetta GTV with the V8, 1.447. Brett Willis, 1.463. Greg Lancaster, 1.464. John Osborne, 1.472. So all very, very close at the top there. Bruce Mannon in the amazing Mannon Butler Escort Turbo, 1.498. That is an exceptionally quick time for that car. Rob Kennard, 1.532. Kieran Wills, 1.535. Don Grindley, 1.611. Kent Baigent in the Skyline, 1.652. Warwick Mortimer, 1.663. Tony Marsh, 1.702. Peter Meadows, 1.744. Expect him to improve. Ian Knight, 1.808. Dave Smythe of the Escort, 1.822. Bob Cullinane, 1.832. Ian Midgley, 1.863. Gary Pullman, 1.864. Rex Finley, 1.914. Jack Broom, 1.916. I don't think he'll start today. Had a bad off yesterday. Lance Johnson, 1.1020. Chris Toms, 1.1250. Brian Connell, 1.1288. Shane Windelburn, 1.1322. You can see these are pretty big fields here. Don Grindley, 1.1398. He'll improve. Right back to 28th position, 29th and 30th. Excellent fields here. Jim Short of the Porsche 911 bringing up the rear of the field. So there's some standard production sports cars, sports sedans, a conglomeration of vehicles here. Coming around on their lap behind the pace car. We'll see if they get a green light and to go. And watch for Roger Freeth to take off from the field. The people capable of catching him ought to be Osborne, Jones, Willis, Algie, and perhaps Grindley. Watch out also for car number 19, the Mannon Butler Escort 2-litre turbo. They've got to start. Away into the first corner. Freeth on the inside. Jones on the outside. Algie hopping in there behind Jones. Willis behind him. Then Lancaster. Then Osborne. Osborne gets in front of Lancaster just for a moment, but back behind him now. Algie being pushed by Willis. And Freeth clears off from the field, pulling a little bit of a gap now as they go down the back straight. From Jones, Algie, Willis, Lancaster, Osborne going past him.
Well, the Flying Doctor really living up to his name, taking the extra Trove, the CRC car right to the front. No mucking about, but a power to weight difference there. What we'll talk about power to weight, 4.5 litres of that little Oldsmobile Starlet, a lighter car, and then competing with obviously the Commodores and the Alfettas of different capacities, different weights. But thoroughly exciting racing for these big bangers. As Tony often says, they bring the crowd to their feet, and there's people like Roger Freeth who get these cars, but they're not easy to drive. Very, very fast, very, very stiff on the suspension, and they thump and bang and jump about, and really exciting stuff to drive and to watch. They take on strange angles, and they make strange noises at times, and they flame up and they spark, and sometimes they hit each other, but you can't take it away from these cars. They do have the crowd appeal. Pure grunt, and they're open out on that back chute. Look at that little Oldsmobile engine and the car go. Magic stuff from the Flying Doctor.
Dr. Roger Freeth, lecturer in mathematics and physics, has been in motorsport for a number of years, and that smoke, I think, was telltale.
Well,
I think that's the end of that
flame,
engine.
actually, now, Tony. Look at that.
Oh.
It's well alight. Now, this will be a good test for all the fire services and for Dr. Rogers' ability to get out of that car quickly. I think it might have put itself out, but keep an eye on that one. Okay, all the danger seems to have gone. Rogers out of the car. No one's hurt. Another car venturing onto the grass down there, but in fact, the grass is on fire, so okay, a bit of petrol possibly burning on the petrol or oil. I think probably that was a fairly comprehensive blow-up, Tony, and it's just dumped a lot of oil out on the exhaust. Kent Baigent rejoining the track. Possibly there's a whole streak of oil going into that turn now, which, well, we'll have to wait and see. That's what we often malign these cars for, being hand grenades. There's the telltale oil strip. There's the fire service ready to put out the hay fire.
We'll just have another look at that again. It certainly looked, the way that puff of smoke came out, he was right towards the braking area, but it looked a lot more comprehensive than that mechanically. And if that is an engine, that's hard luck for Freethy, because he's just paid about 10 grand for a new engine for that.
see we the smoke first, obviously, and the sheet is fairly forward. I would say that's right around the bell housing area. It's lit up on the exhaust system, and very latent flame there from the oil. Actually, it could be even fuel, Tony. Maybe just the fuel lines come disconnected. But whatever, it's the end of Roger Freeth's race, and let's hope he's able to do something before the next Sports Sedan race.
I wonder, in fact, if Roger Freeth knew that that flame was there, because he was a little tardy at getting out of the car, and I guess it had been extinguished reasonably well before he came to a complete halt.
Rob Kennard in your picture at this point? No, in fact, Glenn Jones. Glenn Jones in the Commodore. Now, Glenn's got a long history in motorsport and a long history with sports sedans. He's always liked the big grunt. There's something with a lot of power. This new series that's been put together with the Hansel's people has just drawn all these good cars out, and people have spent a lot of time building up good equipment. Good to see Glenn Jones back in a competitive car. Dr. Roger there surveying the damage. Okay, and there's Brett Willis up behind Glenn and the other Commodores. The Commodores 1 and 2, and Bruce Madden, the little turbo Escort, up to 3rd place. That's really good stuff. In fact, the track has been stopped. The race has been stopped. Now, you can tell that because the leader, Glenn Jones, has got his hand up to warn the people not to go by. We can't see the flags at the point, so we normally would expect to see a black flag at every point and a red flag at the start-finish. Let's see if we can pick a black one. In fact, there is one.
The only flag that was out a lap ago, David, was the white flag to indicate that a service vehicle, fire engine or ambulance was on the circuit.
Well, they've got a restart, and they're certainly screaming, yes, the green flag's out, so they're restarted. Flag, I would suggest, put out purely as a service precaution for that fire engine, to make sure that the firemen aren't under any danger of cars racing against them to get to the scene of the accident. Good stuff, firemen.
So, Brett Willis now in the lead from Glenn Jones. Bruce Madden in the little Euro Parts Escort 2-litre turbo. And a phenomenal little car it is. Now, the front two cars are Commodore V8s. And we'll just have a look behind Willis. He's got in front of Glenn Jones. That's Jones right up his tail there now. Have a look into the braking area. Bruce Madden getting a little bit of a lock-up. The Escort. John Osborne coming through. Lancaster coming through.
Well, that's what happens quite often when we have these pace car situations and restarts and so forth. The guy who's placed second, he can anticipate the lead or the jump of the lead. But here we go. Glenn Jones having a go back up the inside. Brett Willis moves over slightly on him. No worries there. Brett Willis quite safe into there, taking the wide line around that Lotus Cortina there, and that's allowed Glenn Jones to close up just ever so much. Well, this is certainly on. The two Commodores are not going to give each other much room at all here. I can see Glenn Jones is going to have a dip up the inside. Brett Willis moves to the left-hand side. A little bit more horsepower, I'd suggest there, Tony. He just eases away, crosses back to the middle of the road for the safe ground. Going over to the inside just a little bit to make sure that Glenn Jones doesn't go diving up the inside like we saw Kent Baigent and Graham Cameron doing yesterday.
I'll tell you what, looking down the back straight, Don Grindley is moving up in the field too as Osborne goes through in 4th place. These are the leaders coming up on some of the back markers now. Willis, Jones, Madden, Osborne. Here's Lancaster.
John Osborne and Don Grindley run these Mazdas, but they're about as close to the Mazdas as, well, should we say they're V8 powered. When do you ever hear about V8 powered Mazda RX-7s? They're quicker than probably even the Mazda factory could ever imagine them being.
Well, the yellow one that just came into frame on the last shot there, Don Grindley's, is actually powered by a Buick V6 alloy motor. According to the country, about 4.5 litres. And John Osborne's, also from the South Island, is a V8. And the leaders are still Brett Willis and Glenn Jones. Here's Willis and Jones right on his tail. Down the back straight. One more time.
See people saying, what's the difference between these and those Group A things? Well, quite simply, they have much freer regulations. The engines can be other than those obviously made with the car. They can be as big as they want them to be. It's yellow car, the Commodore, Brett Willis, 5.8 litre Chevrolet engine. The engine has moved back in the chassis to get the weight distribution better. And this makes a very fast package. And Brett Willis, in your picture now, streaking through as he's lapping tail enders. Pulled a bit of gap on Glenn Jones in that little manoeuvre there, but he's pressing on, Tony. I mean, that car is flying through these turns, and it's not smoking, it's not doing anything wrong.
The other front runner we have lost, he should have been up there, is Ian Algie in the Alfetta. Trying to get a report on that as well.
Brett Willis approaching this back straight for the last time. In fact, he's now on his final lap, and he looks to be under less pressure now than he probably can coast it a little bit, because obviously the Glenn Jones car has dropped back quite a ways. We've got a yellow flag out there, which would be nice if Glenn Jones was sitting on Brett Willis's backside, because he wouldn't be able to pass. Under a yellow flag, you cannot pass. It means there's an incident on the track. But these blokes don't care about that. They're going to have a real go for the flag. Bruce Mannon in the little Escort. John Osborne taking up the rear of that, but Brett Willis got this race by the scruff of the neck. Glenn Jones second, Bruce Mannon third, John Osborne fourth.
Second flag coming out now for Brett Willis in the Commodore. Coming down to take second place, Glenn Jones, Bruce Mannon, John Osborne. That's the order they finished in. There's the man who has won the incident-packed Sports Sedan race, and one that Roger Freeth didn't dominate. He went out certainly early on and looked like he was going to dictate the pace. He had a massive blow and all sorts of flame. He was out of the race, still down with the fire crew, just checking his car. And when he gets back to the pits, we'll be able to get our reports from there as to what exactly has happened. It may have been something as simple as a fuel or oil line having come off, but I think by the look on Roger Freeth's face, that might be optimistic.
Well, that's the point. When you interviewed Tony, you say that you had an electrical failure because the starter fell off, and jokingly that's what they mean when the starter fell off when the conrod came through the side of the engine and splashed it off. Roger's obviously disappointed. This was going to be his big race, his big meeting. He's won just about everything that's mattered in these cars up until this particular race. And when it mattered, this is what happened.
Well, in drag racing, I'm sure this would be part of the show, but in sports sedans, it's not supposed to happen like this.
Just looking at the program coming up.
Roger Freeth setting the grass alight as he came to rest right on the grass down in the rubbish pit area at the end of the back straight. It's nice to have that there, David, on occasions. Have some runoff.
Well, the other good thing is that the car and indeed Roger is fireproofed. I mean, look at the overalls he's wearing. So just to give you people an idea of the lengths we go to protect our citizens. It's flameproof overalls. He's got fire extinguishers on board that he can activate. So he was in no real problem, but okay, it's nice to see that the systems all work. And the firemen there giving a hand to Roger to get things back on the road, but we suspect his day is done.
If you have a look inside this car, you'll see that Roger Freeth frequently uses a little video camera that frames up on all the gadgets and dials that he has on the dashboard, which monitor all the suspension and the steering lock and the normal gauges as well. And then he can go back and have a look at that at night, which saves him a lot of testing time. I don't think it's going to tell him too terribly much about that little incident. Somebody just crawling underneath to have a look at what the damage is. We'll get a word and report to you as soon as we can on exactly what the problem is with Roger Freeth. We hope for his sake he can get back in.
The reason that we criticize these cars from time to time being hand grenades is quite simply the boys stretch every available horsepower out of them. They make them go so fast. They develop the engine so literally they're only made to last a short while, and if they're good enough to win, well, that's great. But they don't mind. They like the freedom of rules, and they like the fact that they well, they can do their own thing.
We just heard from the pits that all he had was a sudden loss of oil pressure. He's not quite sure what it was that was wrong with it.
Well, that would sound like the oil line, Tony, but hey, it was a lot of oil. I guess he could have blown a pressure line off.
You can't run a bloody motor race like that, but twice they come and die.
There's a lot of discussion going on here.
Well, of course, obviously it will be the fact that they're trying to see that you can eavesdrop. John Osborne's voice was listen.
We had this last year, we got fined $300 for throwing out the gate. Don't want me shush. This guy cost him a race.
Cost me the race.
Cost me my
I slow
place.
down and lose it. Not the end of the world, but if they
Yellow, orange diagonals out over there. That means the race is finished.
Where the hell's race control here?
This is really getting inside motorsport. I mean, John Osborne usually tells you a bit more plainly what's wrong with a race than that, but hey, okay, he's annoyed, and there's Kent Baigent. He's pretty upset about it. Now, he would have gone off on the oil, so he's probably sore about it. But what was probably the problem in everyone's mind is the fact that the race was semi-stopped and then got going again. Well, I guess John Osborne's a bit sore about that, Tony. Well, I guess that's the stewards telling us they don't really want to see us getting in there.